Welcome to another episode of The Artsy Raven, a show about writing and publishing with your host, J.F. Garrard.
Welcome to another episode of The Artsy Raven, and with me today is Quentin Lee. Now, Quentin is the winner of the 2020 Roddenberry Foundation Impact Awards for TV Creators, a member of the Producers Guild of America, Canadian Media Producers Association, and Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, Directors and Producers Peer Group. Quentin Lee is a multimedia creator and has directed and produced over 10 feature films and 3 TV series. His first feature, Shopping For Fangs, premiered at Toronto International Film Festival and became a cult classic as part of the Asian American New Wave class of 1997. As a creator, he is currently developing Rez Comedy, the first Canadian Indigenous stand-up comedy TV series for APTN, Aboriginal Peoples TV Network, and Canadian Media Fund, with principal photography date of January 2024. His latest feature, The Last Summer of Nathan Lee, explores the story of a Chinese-American teenager who, upon receiving a devastating diagnosis, chooses to embrace life with an unbridled passion. So, Quentin, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why are you a director?
Well, I think I grew up in I grew up in Hong Kong until I was 15, and then when I was like 6 or 7, I always wanted to make films because my mom made me watch all these kind of like 70s horror movies. I don't know why, but so I was like, so my entry into cinema is really, horror, like 70s horror films, kind of like played on Hong Kong television, and also The Fantastic Voyage, actually. So that's one movie that really stayed in my mind because I thought it was so imaginative that I think I saw it on TV. Then we went to see it in the theaters also. Then I also fell in love with James Bond. I think I saw the first James Bond, the Roger Moore one, To Live and Let Die. So I was I wanted to make films, but I didn't know how to go about doing it. And I was learning English and in Hong Kong. So I started writing a lot of little stories just on the scribble on these piece of papers. And then when I was in grade 10, which is Form 4, usually my grades are really terrible. I was just in the bottom of the class in Hong Kong. It was so difficult to go to school. I didn't want my son to go to school in Hong Kong. And I remember in my grade, I think it was grade 10 or grade 9, there was a British teacher that was teaching English, and I wrote this essay called "What I Did Last Summer." So I just basically made up a little story about me going to a cabin and then with some friends, and then everybody gets killed. It was a serial killer on the loose, and then that essay somehow was the top of the class. She said, "Oh my God, this is so imaginative, Miss Scott." And Miss Scott really encouraged me to write, and I never thought that, I was good at anything other than maybe like, writing English stories. And it was but she only taught there for like one semester and she left like almost like the second semester. So at that point I started writing a lot of stories in English. And obviously like, my grammar wasn't even, I was still learning English at like maybe like 13 or 14. And then eventually, just right before I left for Canada, because of Hong Kong 1997, we had to go to. My dad got a job in Montreal, so we all got to immigrate to Montreal. And the summer before I left, I think I got a Premier magazine, and in Premier magazine, there was a story about Brian De Palma, who was making casualties of war, and they showed up all the storyboard of how he storyboarded the entire movie, but then they showed the storyboard of how this Vietnamese woman was raped and murdered by these 2 teenagers. Sorry, by the American soldiers. So I thought, and I was just so impressed. I just said, okay, that's the kind of filmmaker I want to be. I want to be like Brian De Palma or Hitchcock and have every frame decided. So you go on set and you just be shooting stuff. You just have everything. So it's very storyboarded way of making film. So I carried that idea, went to, Montreal and go to Lower Canada College, grade 11, grade 12. And also the reason why I had to go into a private school is because in Montreal, there was something called the Bill 101, which did not allow immigrant children whose parents were not solely educated in English to go to English schools.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yes,
Wow.
so I would have to go into French immersion at grade 11 and take the matriculation that year, all in French. So which means that I wouldn't have passed, I wouldn't have graduated. So there's no way so that's the only way is I could, they were going to send me away to like boarding school. I really didn't want to go. So they found, Lower Canada College was a day school, and we lived by there. And I started going to school, and then after grade 12, I applied to, so regardless, I had to leave the province anyway. So because if you didn't go through the SAGEF system, I wouldn't be able to get into SAGEF system because I was not able to pass French because I didn't know any French. And if I didn't pass French, I wouldn't get in a SAGEF system. So I had to take this special grade 12 and leave the province, either go to Ontario, BC, or go to the US. So I ended up, of course, I said I'm going to apply to UCLA because that's where I want to go for film school, because I realized UCLA offered an independent filmmaker program where every student, I don't know why I wanted to go to UCLA. I didn't. So I applied to a bunch of schools. I applied to, because there was no film school at UCLA, so I couldn't apply to theater. I applied to theater, but I didn't get in. So I was very dejected getting rejected by UCLA, but I got into USC in Berkeley. And then I think like everybody said, please don't go to USC at that point, because it's University of Second Choice, University of Sport Chinese, and there's all these names out there about USC, and it's like, just go to Berkeley. But Berkeley doesn't have a film school. Then my dad sort of said, well, you know what, we will pay for your film school if postgraduate. Just go to a good college. So I ended up going to Berkeley, and I thought I was going to major in theater, but then I got a B in one production class. I worked my ass off. I thought, you know what, I don't want to get a B. So I switched to an English major. And so I was able to graduate basically summa cum laude in English. And then after Berkeley, I applied to UCLA again. And I knew I came really close. I got an interview, but I didn't get in. But I got to USC again. So I was like, oh God, I really want to go to UCLA. And then, but by chance, I got into Yale to kind of continue doing an MA in English in like theory and literature. So why don't just go to Yale first, because it couldn't go wrong if you just go to Yale for a year, got your MA, and you reply to UCLA. And that's why I did. Went to Yale. It was a great year, did English, and then but at that point, when I graduated from Berkeley, I said I'm not gonna wait any longer to make film. So I picked up a video camera and made my first few shorts. And then I made my first short was To Ride a Cow. Then somehow that short film got into like 1 million festivals, like sort of springboard my career. So, and I was already making kind of experimental videos, films, whatever you can call them, during my year between Berkeley and Yale. And then so finishing Yale, I applied to UCLA again, and I came down. I think I came down I have to flew in for an interview to LA, to UCLA for the interview. So I know I came really close. I'm getting in again, and then somehow I graduated, and then I got this notification from UCLA saying that, oh, you're waitlisted on the program. I said, oh, damn it. So I said, okay, I'm gonna go to USC. So I, packed my bags, came back to California, and went to USC on my first day of school. And then I was just kind of depressed because the reason why I didn't want to go to USC for the film program at that time was because they have a class of 100 per year, and they only pick about like 5 to 10 projects to make a thesis film. So for me, if I want to go to film school, I really wanted to make a thesis film. I don't want to just take it to chance. So I got depressed, went to orientation for the first day. Then I came home, I got a message from UCLA saying that, oh, you got in, you got into UCLA. So what happened was that there was another Asian male filmmaker that actually switched from the UCLA program to the USC. So I kind of took his spot and canceled my check at USC.
So you guys swap places.
Yeah, it's very strange. And I also know him. I also knew this filmmaker, and I don't know why UCLA took him, but not me, and then
But
and
worked out in the end.
I don't remember his name, but I particularly remember that he made a documentary about Asian American men, and they were all kind of like crying. It's just kind of like a documentary about these 5 Asian American men, a bunch of Asian American talking about like how hard it was for them to be Asian American men. And they're all crying and stuff in the documentary. It's like, I thought, wow, I can't believe they took him over me. And at that
Oh
point,
my gosh. Okay.
and also at that point, like I was out, and being queer was not a bonus.
Mhm.
Because I remember the professors asked me like, oh, by the way, Quentin, at UCLA, there got to be a lot of like other students who are privileged and who are more privileged than you, who are like, you know, white male, basically saying like, how would you get along with them? Because I was very out and militant and being queer, right? And then I said, of course I get along with them. But I was like, you know what? I'm pretty privileged too. Why did they think I was not privileged?
Like, I'm a rich person too. Leave me
Because I
alone.
was like queer and Asian, and you'd be like, that's odd. I didn't argue, so.
No, but sometimes it does feel like, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like sometimes I have to try harder to be part of the group. I know what you mean. I was just at a conference this weekend, and there weren't. I think I was maybe one of 3 Chinese people there, and then everyone else was Caucasian, and there were just some conversations where I had to push myself to, you know what I mean, like sort of get along a bit more half the time, because sometimes I don't know what they're saying. Like it's like a cultural thing, really. So although I've grown
Yeah,
up in Canada,
yeah.
but sometimes I still feel a little bit left out when they start.
But I felt it was a little bit racist when I was being into UCLA because I was a person of color plus I'm queer. They automatically think that, oh, he's broke.
Well, listen to your
You
story. I was like, you.
So I was like, okay, I didn't bother to correct them, right? But then I
Yeah.
think that also the climate then was that being queer was not considered. I don't think it's not part of like affirmative. Like suddenly,
Mhm.
I would say within these 5 years, being queer has become it's more advantageous to you in terms of application, but not
Yes.
before literally 5 years ago. I mean, I was because I guess being gay is not considered as like being super, So
Yeah.
in general, like it's also the vibe has changed a lot. Like I think that also being, I think for a long time. So anyway, so let's fast forward to like, so that's how I got
Okay.
making
Okay.
films.
Okay. So
Fast
you went to
forward to
UCLA and you
went
completed
to
the program.
UCLA, and UCLA, I met Justin Lin, and we made Shopping for Fangs together. That got into Toronto Film Festival in 1997. And then that sort of springboarded our career, and we got us in making film. And ever since Shopping for Fangs, again, like I've been saying, like I've been trying to make a Canadian project. I was talking to Alliance or whatever companies that were around for like decades trying to make a Canadian project. But they, at that point, again, like before, I would say 5 years ago, being Asian American or diversity is not, they don't really give shit.
Yeah.
Seriously. Like I that's the irony of about Canada and the US. It's that theoretically Canada is more progressive, but it's not, because I've been trying to make a Canadian project since 97. And this is what, 2023. And it wasn't until really like a couple of years ago that my projects, people started like really thinking about doing more diverse projects. But before all that, they don't really care if you're Asian or whatever, right? And Shopping for Fangs was one of the few kind of like Asian North American features that got into Toronto, but that did not matter. And we were part of Perspective Canada. So I think that so I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I think that it's very challenging to be both queer and Asian in a time without when you're not really when diversity is not valued.
Yeah, okay. So after you finished at UCLA, you did your project with Justin Lin, and then you've been just continuing on trying to make film projects, I'm guessing, or do you do other projects too?
Yeah. Oh, I have to say that I have to thank Canada Council for the Arts. So I got a grant from Canada Council for the Arts to make Shopping for Fangs. So because I met Camilla Freiberg, who's an Atom Guns producer at Vancouver International Film Festival, which I premiered like kind of my first feature, but it's a collection of my UCLA short films called Flow. And then she wrote me a recommendation. And then when we were making Shopping for Fangs, I kind of pitched, I put in a grant proposal to Canada Council for the Arts for Shopping for Fangs. And then, so they funded it. And also that my second film, Drift, feature film, was also funded by by Canada Council for the Arts. So I have to say I wholeheartedly thank Canada Council for the Arts for kind of like, jump starting my career, because without them it really wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't be able to get the capital to make my
So
first two
tell
features.
me, what is Shopping for Fangs and Drift about?
Shopping for Fangs, it's very weird. It's basically a comedy. Justin and I were trying to make like a Chongqing Express, but set in LA. And I said, you write a story. I said, well, he wrote a story about this guy who's suddenly starting growing a lot of hair and thinks he's turning into a werewolf. And I wrote a story about this kind of like woman with a double personality and thinks this lesbian waitress is stalking her, but ended up to be something else, kind of like a fight club kind of situation. I don't know why I came up with that. And it's somewhere there's like there was a gay best friend of this waitress who's played by John Cho, and that was actually John Cho's first film. So also, helped springboard John Cho to getting American Pie. So yeah, we just kind of made that on our own, and we got, I think, 50,000 Canadian from Canada Council for the Arts, which translated maybe 35. So we made the whole movie on 35,000 on 35 millimeter in 1996, the summer of 1996. Then it got into Toronto 97, also premiered at the San Francisco International Asian American Film Festival. So it's funny because that movie was just, everybody loved. I mean, the festivals loved that movie. At the same time, it's commercially, it just didn't get that much commercial distribution. But it's on Tubi right now. So you go to Tubi and you just Google Shopping for Fangs and you can watch it for free. And
Okay.
so but I also distributed that film theatrically, and like 25 years later, I'm coming back to Full Circle on my 8th feature, Last Summer of Nathan Lee. I'm also, and it's ironic that this Nathan Lee didn't get any kind of like love from the festivals. It's gone to like the Cam Fest in San Francisco, and also the Hong Kong Gay and Lesbian. That's it. And then I'm also theatrically releasing it myself in Toronto now. It's now playing. Actually, by the time you watch this, it will be on my platform. It's opening LA this weekend, so I'm really
Okay,
excited.
cool. Okay, let's focus on your latest one, The Last Summer of Nathan Lee. So, how did you come up with the story, and what led to making this project?
Yeah, so back to my high school in grade 11, I have a friend named Nicholas. I didn't know him very well because when I went to school with him, he had brain cancer and he was kind of sick. And I just remember, like, he went through a surgery, and then he never came back after the summer. It's grade 12, and he just passed away. So, and I didn't think that much about it then, and I just thought, wow, I just kind of shocked that a friend my age just died. And even though it's very rare, and then during COVID, about 2020, you think about death a lot, and I thought, you know what, I just don't want to, like, you always want to make like a bigger budget film, but at the end, so I just want to make this thing. I want to make a teen found footage comedy, because I've always had that idea to make a found footage film that's also a teen comedy. And then I thought about, oh, what about using Nicholas' story, and just, he has brain. I always thought, like, well, if I have brain cancer, I'm going to die in some kind of terminal illness, I'm going to die in a year, what would I do? I probably want to have as much sex as possible if I've never had any before, if I were a virgin. So I pitched that to the writer that I was working with, another romantic comedy with Dennis, and Dennis is Latino, and he's also straight. But then I read this really amazing teen transgender high school script that he wrote. I thought, like, wow, that came out of you. I never thought that was. So I said, like, well, why don't you write this? I have this idea, I want to make a found footage film about a teenager who has brain cancer, but it's funny, it's a comedy, it's not sad, it should be empowering and hopeful. So, and then I thought, oh, by the way, I also worked with this actor named Harrison Sue when he was 16 in Vancouver. Made a little Canadian short film with him, and he's now 20, maybe 10 years later, 26, 27, and he's just in LA, and kind of like, and he hasn't had a leading role yet, and I always want to work with him again. So why don't we write this script for him star. And so we all met together, the three of us, Harrison, Dennis, and I. We met in the height of COVID in July of 2020. Then we met and we chatted, and then Dennis went out to writing, and then again, like because I didn't really pay Dennis because I said I didn't have money then. I still don't have money, so I'm still broke. So I said, well, I don't, so, and I wasn't sure, like, I kind of left it as, well, if it inspires you, then you should write it on spec. And then, I make my best efforts to make it. And somehow he came back with a draft like a few months later. And then I started putting in like the people that I've already worked with. And, like Natasha, I did a documentary with, and I think it's called Searching for Anime Wong. It's also on Tubi, and it's a really great documentary about her as a struggling actress trying to follow the footsteps of Anime Wong, kind of thing. And so it's Natasha came on board. Then I also auditioned Aaron Guest somehow for a short film. I just always remembered him. So I've auditioned a lot of actors that I just remembered, and maybe that didn't help work out then, but then I did that in my mind. And then if the right thing came about, I just kind of say, hey, this is a great thing for you. So yeah, when we just ended up shooting the film September of 2021. So it was still at the height of COVID. Yeah. So I kind of knew I had to shoot it before the winter because I was also a COVID compliance officer, and knowing that, having seen how COVID kind of like ebb and wane for a year, okay, you better shoot it before the weather gets cold because that's going to be more infection. So
what do you mean COVID compliance officer? What does that mean?
So I'm a certified COVID compliance officer and also pandemic event advisor. So which means that I took 2 classes, and during COVID, when COVID exploded, a lot of people started being certified as COVID compliance officers, because that's a very important kind of thing. When you're shooting a movie in the pandemic, you would need to have COVID compliance.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay,
So I
cool.
became a certified COVID compliance. I became a certified COVID compliance not necessarily because I want to be one. I just want to be able to understand and how to supervise. Because I know I'll be shooting films, I'll be shooting some stuff. So I just want to be able to supervise. So basically on Last Summer Nathan Lee, I think like I'm a COVID compliance officer. Kit Jazo, another producer, was a COVID compliance officer, and Kevin Huey, my other producer, is also COVID compliance officer. So we have 3 COVID compliance officers on the set. So we sort of like be able to because COVID compliance actually is quite expensive. It adds about like 10% to your budget, and we didn't have that budget. So we kind of did it on our own. And we actually shot Comedy Invasion 2.0. I think in May of 2021, and then shot Last Summer Nathan Lee September 2021, and there's still nobody turned. Not that I've heard of, nobody turned COVID positive from our sets.
Okay. So what was the most challenging thing shooting this film? I mean, it sounded like you already knew some of the players, and things fell into place.
The most challenging for any independent project is also money. Is also getting the money. So I just knew that, I'm just gonna, scrape up some money to make Last Summer of Nathan Lee. And then when I was ready to go, a major production company kind of like, talked to me about the script and then wanted to read it. Then they said, oh, we'll give you $500,000 for it if you want. I said, sure.
Did you sign in blood? No, just kidding.
No, it's just like he says, like, well, first thing, just want to make sure we don't want a found footage movie. I said, damn, I've been wanting to make a found footage movie, but that's okay. With $500,000, I don't have to make a found footage movie. Then he says, like, oh, by the way, Quentin, we cannot have brain cancer or any cancer because cancer doesn't sell. I said, well, I am okay with that, but he has to die. He has to die, right? It's not like it's not like
the stakes aren't high enough in the story otherwise.
Yeah. And then they said, yeah, if he has to die, we'll figure something else. Then he says, oh, we can only guarantee you and the writer. But I said, but I've already attached some people to the cast to it. Then I says, And I thought about it. I said, well, but you know what? I kind of made this project for Harrison, so Harrison has to be part of the package. Then he said, okay, I hear that Harrison has to be part of the package. And they went to a major agency, and then they said, oh no, we couldn't package it with Harrison on board. Then they dropped the project. So back to square one. I'm saying, okay, well, that's what I planned anyways. Like, so basically when you wait long enough, I think like the undesirable options would drop off. So anyway, so back to square one. We're making it for no budget, whatever money I scraped up with to kind of like make it. But then what was great about during that time was you feel like that if this were not the movie I really wanted to make, I wouldn't have made it and if this were the last movie I was going to make and I die of COVID, it's totally fine. And then,
So, I mean, how much money would you need to gather by yourself to make an independent
oh, I
film?
can't
I
tell
was
you.
thinking,
That's a trade secret.
ah,
The trade secret as a producer. Never show it way
okay,
under $1 million. That's what you tell
okay.
people. People ask you for budget. But I think one of the challenges of us was COVID was a challenge because
Mhm.
on the third day of production, we just shot at our place outside, and then I came back, and then I came up to upstairs to download footage, and then my nanny came in and said, "Oh my God, Quentin, I'm so sorry, I got COVID." I said, "What?" I said, like, and she was wearing a mask. I said, "Well, you know what? You still have to take care of my son because I am shooting a movie right now." Then I told my producer and who were both COVID compliance officers, and and they basically said, "Well, you know what? Why don't you go get a test tomorrow?" Because I almost shot out the week. So if my test was negative tomorrow, so third day, the fourth day, I could shoot out the week. So I shot out that week, and then just on Saturday or Sunday, I took another test. I got back the result, and I was negative. So I have two negatives that cleared me for the second week. And I was just really stressed out during that time because it's not like I could tell people, anybody like on set saying that, oh, my nanny got COVID, they're all freaked out. It's like, and that was like also when we didn't have a lot of understanding on COVID transmission. Still wasn't clear after a year. And then I think that, yeah, so I was just very grateful to be able to shoot out the movie. I was just like praying, I just like, oh my God, dear God, what am I going to do? Please let me finish the film. And then he let me finish the film.
Okay, so we're gonna wrap up a bit, but what is the latest thing you're gonna shoot? Are you allowed to tell us what project you're
Yeah,
working on?
yes,
Okay.
that was Rez Comedy. So I've been developing Rez Comedy, which is a 13-part Indigenous stand-up comedy TV series with my co-showrunner and comic Keith Nahaney of Squamish Nation in Vancouver, and we were greenlit into development by APTN and Canadian Media Fund, but then APTN decided not to greenlight us into production. So we're back in the drawing board, but we've applied for some grants. So by the time this podcast is released, we would know if we were going to be shooting at end of January. So we have everything cast, everything prepared. So I'm very excited about that because it's going to be really the first Indigenous stand-up comedy TV series of its kind ever.
Oh, that sounds so awesome.
Yeah, and I met Keith on Comedy Invasion. So I met Keith on Comedy Invasion, which is a series already out on Tubi and Roku channel, and also something else. But it's out, so you guys can watch it. It's also the first Canadian diverse stand-up comedy TV series by a diverse creator like me. It's on, yeah. So we met on Comedy Invasion, and we decided to do Rez Comedy together, and I think that it's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you for spending time with us, and I'll try to include as many links as I can in the podcast notes so people can find you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye. For more upcoming episodes of the Artsy Raven about writing and publishing, visit us at jfgarrard.com/arpodcast. A reminder to Patreon subscribers that there is bonus content available for every episode on the Patreon website. If you enjoyed the show, you can show your appreciation by buying us some digital coffee. The Artsy Raven is produced by J.F. Garrard. The voice in the show's introduction is Chris Gorman, and music is by Tim Moore. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, stay safe.